everybody, this is Praxis.
Huples cat enjoying a coffee between night shifts. Praxis did a really good video where he talked about the two main threats he feels are coming very soon.
Whether it is human caused or whether it is not human caused, I don't think we're going to rise to the challenge this time any better than we did any of those other times. So it would behoove all of us to get ready for us to fail yet again to not destroy ourselves. And so it really doesn't matter whether it's human caused or not human caused. Climate change happens throughout history, and we got to get ready for it because there is a lot of writing on the wall right now that we are moving into another big change, whether that's human or whether it's not human. The change is all around us. We're seeing it everywhere.
Of course, supply chain bumps imply that you might have a temporary reduction of stuff. What I'm actually prepping for, and I suspect Praxis is, and this was a candid video, but I think when I look at what he's doing with his new home, because his other home was pretty good, what I think about what he's doing and what he's trying to do, what he's trying to create where he is on his piece of land.
Hey everybody, this is Praxis, and in this video I'm going to be sharing my thoughts about comparing my battery-powered chainsaws, which I've been using for years, with this gas one that I borrowed from my dad. The battery-powered ones were having some issues. One of them wasn't feeding oil out to the bar very well. It had clogged up, and the people that make it didn't really have any helpful suggestions on that. The other one was just never particularly good. I borrowed this one, and I'm not going to say I'm disappointed, but when I got, it's like the real man's gas-powered chainsaw, which is obnoxious and loud and uses gasoline and creates fumes and everything.
How dare you!
I see somebody doing what I'm doing in a different way in Canada. He is actually preparing for the fall, not of supply chains, but of society. That local is it. That what you can grow, what you can barter for, what you can hunt, what you can steal locally will be it for quite some time, unless society rebuilds itself. And societies always do rebuild themselves eventually. It's just the process between society's collapse and fully functional rebuild can be a period of 50 years, 500 years, or 1,000 years or more. And if we throw nuclear weapons into it, it could be a 10 to 20,000 year interruption. If we don't go extinct, and we probably would for various reasons in nuclear war, which I've covered before, it actually would be an awfully long time before we have this type of thing again, before you can buy fresh paint to clean your walls, to make your home clean so you don't get diseases inside the home. It might be a long, long, long time.
And that is going to have an impact on a lot of parts of our ability to sustain ourselves, specifically access to food and water. Get those squared away. If there are bumps in the supply chain, and if you don't believe there can be bumps in the supply chain, you probably haven't been alive for the past couple of years.
Then he talks about the importance of having battery backups. I think he means solar as well as wind. So you're not totally just dependent on the grid, because the grid could fail and then you'd be in a bad situation if you have nothing else other than the grid.
The power grid. If you're dependent on the power grid and you can't do anything in your house without that power grid, things are going to be difficult for you.
And he talks about food, like get your pantry stocked up, get it ready.
If you can get your pantry together while supplies are available at the moment, get stuff cheap, when things are available, that is going to make it so that if there are bumps in the supply chain, those supplies, that pantry is going to be like your battery backup, and you're going to be able to weather those supply bumps without having to suffer through it like everyone else.
And I think he's right about this, but I also think he's wrong about this. If we are looking and planning for human-caused climate change, what Praxis is doing in his homesteading, and what I'm planning to do in a few months in my homestead, is actually the only way out of this. You're going to have localized areas that are able to be sustained and produce sometimes excess to try and get civilization rocking again. We can't rely on the internet, we can't rely on this, that and the other. If society globally falls on the earth, it's going to be a long journey back, and the faster we can do that journey, the better it will be. So I'm preparing so I don't go hungry, and Kitty doesn't go hungry, and Wolfie, my dog, doesn't go hungry. And I think all of us are preparing for that, but at the same time I'm pretty sure Praxis is also preparing to try and help his local community to get a kickstart on resumption of a new form of civilization, however that might unfold.
And in addition to that, you're going to help make the world a better place for everyone else as well, because when everyone else is clamoring for those scarce goods because the goods have become scarce, you're not going to be competing with those people. Good for you, and also good for all those people because they have one less person to have to compete with. So by preparing for this yourself, you're making the future shortages less bad for all the other people. I know that preppers have been almost equated with hoarders, that, like, by us having a big pantry, it's somehow taking away from other people. But we are really helping to reduce the impacts when there are shortages, because when there are shortages, I'm not going out and I'm not buying flour when it's like 3 times the price. I'm not competing with other people when it's scarce. I'm getting that stuff now, so I'm helping all those people that blame me later by making it so that I'm not competing with them later. There's more available for all of them. And it's win-win because it's good for me too. I don't have to pay the high prices. I don't have to, be out there with the mobs and, worry about whether I'm not going to get the stuff or not.
Bit of a PSA from me here. If anybody in your area knows, and if any of the family around you know that you have huge food stocks or huge water stocks, and it really is a crisis, they will come and they will try and take your food stuff. They will blame you for surviving. People are irrational at the best of times. In a fall of society, people as a group, as a collective, will be incredibly irrational. They will sacrifice children to try and get the rain to fall from the sky. It's amazing what people, me and your neighbours, can do when massively confronted with a collapse of society. Make no mistakes here. It is going to be an awful, awful experience, but it is not a guaranteed one, thank goodness. The future is always unknown. We have no idea what technological breakthroughs are about to happen. We have no idea what might happen in terms of black swan events, like aliens arrive and forcibly sterilize most of the planet and make us more human because they're really, really angry at how we've been treating whales or pigs because they feel that they're a whale or a pig. We have no idea what the future will do. What we can do is look at the past and look at the trends. When we look at the past and we look at the trends and we look at the carbon dioxide that we're releasing from burning fossil fuel and we look at the drought cycle and we look at a lot of different things, it's pretty obvious we cannot sustain a population of 8 billion the way we're doing it right now. It has to change, and change will come by force and horrible, or by force and not so bad, but it's going to suck. It's going to suck telling people you can't buy a new car every year because you're not allowed to own a car anymore because X, Y and Z. Big liberal, big socialism. I have my right to do whatever I want. Brrr. Yeah, you do, as long as you're not having me, right? Your freedom begins and ends where your freedom harms me, and vice versa. And I don't think a lot of people think like that, but I do.
Prepare now. Prepare financially, prepare in terms of food, think about your access to water. These things are really important. I know that other things seem important, and they are. It's important to, spend time with your family. It's important to, take vacations, so you can have quality time with people. There's all sorts of things in your life that are important, and I'm sorry that I led off with spending time with your family. That is a very important thing, and you shouldn't shortchange that. In fact, I wish I hadn't even included that on the list.
Yeah, we are social creatures. Only about 1 in 3 parents will actually eat their children in a famine to feed their other children. That's about the statistics that we found from the Ukraine starvation in the 1930s and a few other events as well. So we're not as good as some people might like to think we are, and we can do horrific things sometimes for good outcome. But it's an interesting thing to look at, is that family is really what we are. We express ourselves in social ways. And yet many preppers believe that they're lone wolf, they really don't care. A lot of them, actually because of ego and mental illness issues, actually are looking forward to a time where they're allowed to just execute people using guns who come near or onto their property. That's an interesting fact, that those people have no insight into the fact they obviously have real horrific anger and hate issues that they probably should fix, because in the here and now, before society falls, that level of aggression and hatred towards human beings isn't actually a sign of mental health or stability, is it?
If you're going to prepare with your family. But there are all sorts of things that seem important, like having a reliable vehicle. Let's start with that one. Having a reliable vehicle is important for keeping your job. You can think of all the things that are important to you right now, but if all those things went away, what are going to be the things that are really going to be important to you? Is being able to keep shelter over your head, having the financial resources, or having set plans in advance so you can keep a shelter over your head if it's snowing or raining and maybe you lost your home, to be able to keep food in your stomach, in your family's stomach, to keep water into your family so they're not dehydrating. Those are the things that are super, super important. And there's all sorts of other things that are important. Again, keeping your job is important. Being able to have a vehicle to get you to that job is important. Keeping your lawn short is important if you don't want to have ticks in your lawn. Around here we got lots of ticks. There are all sorts of things that are important, but there are important things and then there are important things.
I fundamentally agree with him here. There are important things and there are important things. No, there isn't. There's the stuff that's so important that you will risk your life and liberty to maintain. And there are other things that you can't imagine living without, but to be honest with you, if you lose them, you'd adjust. Things like coffee. I can get over that. Water. No, I'm going to die. Love of my family and companionship from Kitty. I would have a hard time losing that. My social contacts at work and here on YouTube, I would miss them, but it wouldn't kill me. What he's saying is have a good look, have a good think. Don't be blinded by your biases. If human-caused climate change is something you do not believe in, or collapse of the American dollar is something you cannot foresee happening, imagine if it would happen. Look at people who are producing content that's reasonable, not ridiculous, on those topics, and have a good think. If X and Y actually do occur, and I don't think they will because of Z, but if Z is wrong, and if I am wrong, what would the world be like over the next 1 to 5 to 10 year period of time? Don't worry about 2050 or 2100 or 2200. Like, who cares? Worry about 2025. What will human-caused climate change? What will economic instability because of consumptive capitalism on a fixed earth actually look like for you and your safety in 2025? And prep now for then.
Focus on some of those important things right now because we're going into some rough times, I think. And if you get ready for them now, they're going to be not that bad.
I'll never disagree with an optimistic message, but honestly, if society collapses or partially collapses, it will be an enormous suck. It will suck every minute of every day for the rest of your life if society collapses. Make no mistake, it won't be an extended camping trip. It won't be fun with your mates hunting deer. It will suck.
And if they don't happen, think about it. If we don't go into a situation where the economy collapses, somehow the American empire lasts forever. If somehow the climate never changes and there's never any tweaks and there's never any supply chain shortages, what have you done for yourself? You've made yourself a little bit more frugal so you're ready for it. When you got some more money in the bank. You get yourself a pantry. You bought stuff when it was on sale. You bought stuff when it was in bulk. So you save yourself some money there and you save yourself some trips out to the grocery store because you don't have to go out as often because you got some stuff in the house. Also win. So preparing for stuff, it's really win-win. Even if none of these things ever happen, depending on the preps that you take, it's really, you don't run the possibility of wasting your time, because that's what I hear a lot of time with people. It's like, I tried the prepping thing, it was a big waste of time. It really depends on what you're doing.
This is called rationalization. You could have spent that money on a trip to Disney World. You could have spent that money on a really nice bottle of scotch. You could have not worked and had time off and sat in your garden drinking beer, listening to the birds fly by. Yes, I think we should prep. Yes, I agree with his message. But let's not kid ourselves here. As preppers, we're rationalizing, spending a lot of thought, a lot of time, and yes, a lot of money relatively, preparing for apocalypse, preparing for personal disaster. And I think a certain amount of prepping is absolutely 101 and should be taught in high school. People should have, like I do, a fire extinguisher on every level of the house. They should have at least one, I usually have two, working smoke alarms on every level of the house. They should have, like I do, in a multi-level house, the ability to throw a ladder over the balcony and get out easily and safely if I can't go downstairs because of smoke or fire. There's a certain amount of prepping people should do. People should be able to drink water for 2 weeks and eat food quite well for 2 weeks. People should be able to not freeze to death for 2 weeks in the winter if the power's out, or get too hot in the summer if the power's out. People should have a certain amount of prepping. What Praxis is talking about, what I'm doing, what I talk about, isn't emergency planning for short-term scenarios. It is about fall of society. It is about economic collapse caused or causing human-caused climate change, causing circular, connected, interrelated. Whatever disaster happens, I think, it usually won't be something we've prepped for in isolation. It will be multi-layered, it will be slower than we think, and it will take most people by surprise. For example, I'll use the example again of SARS-CoV-2, COVID-19 pandemic. Pretty much every prepper under the sun had read or watched videos about pandemics. A substantial number of those preppers did not have N95s, did not shave beards, did not go into social distancing, and spent the entire pandemic to this point denying its existence. People's minds, people's spirits, people's hearts are so important. And when you look from the outside at somebody with a contra or a different angle on what you believe is basic common sense, it's staggering. I'm still staggered by the reaction of a lot of preppers that the pandemic does not exist or is not even a major issue. It shocks me. I just can't understand why. The reason I can't understand why is I don't have their lived experience. I don't have their internal biases. I don't have their actual local conditions. I haven't read the books they've read. I haven't watched the videos they've read. But I will say to conclude for me that if you want to get healthcare advice, get it from a doctor, get it from lots of doctors. Try and throw some of us nurses into it because we actually know a lot of stuff. Don't go get healthcare advice from your pastor. Don't get healthcare advice from a politician, whether it's Biden or Trump. They're not specialists in this. They're just regurgitating what they think they're hearing and the parts of it they want to regurgitate. The same with any organisation that's big enough. The actual information is diluted by committees and discussions to the point where you as an individual can look at some of the decisions the CDC, as example, has made and go, oh, really? We can all do that. It doesn't mean that you can prep in isolation from other people. It does mean you have to think a bit more. Don't be so ready to join the crowd. Don't be so ready to make sweeping statements. If you find yourself saying something like, denial of SARS-CoV-2 means there must be stupid at this point. I've said that and I thought it, but it's wrong. It's a shut statement. It's as bad as saying it doesn't exist, in my opinion. Saying it exists or it's not as bad as I think it is, or I'm not sure about the vaccine, I'm not sure about this and that and the other, that's a whole bunch of cold ambiguity. But looking at people who don't accept my worldview on it and saying that they're just stupid is not actually helpful to them or to me. It closes me off from their information on that and other topics that I might want to listen to.
If you're preparing by making yourself more self-sufficient, self-reliant, more financially independent, if you're preparing by, having things that you know that you're going to need, like food and water, that can't possibly be a waste of time, and it might just be a lifesaver. That's it. Good luck, and thanks for watching.
Yeah, it's a great message. I'm 56, I'm a registered nurse, I've trained in England, I've trained in Canada, I've critical care experience for a couple of decades in charge roles. I've worked and taught in 2 major teaching hospitals in Toronto, critical care programs. I have done research, I've done a whole bunch of things. I'm currently in management of an entire hospital at night on my own, and I still have been teaching in the classroom at a university and baccalaureate level for quite some time. Yeah, I'm bullying myself up. But those people online have told me that I am a shill for COVID, that I don't know what I'm talking about, that what was the other thing I get? I'm sick of hearing about COVID. Hey, if you're a prepper and you don't believe in SARS-CoV-2, okay, I'll admit it. I question your sanity. For goodness sake, you don't think this is a good practice? You don't think that there will be a pandemic that will kill a large number of people, a lot larger than's being killed by SARS-CoV-2? You don't think that'll ever happen in your lifetime? And as a prepper, you're not going to prepare for that because it will never happen? Like, even if you completely reject SARS-CoV-2 as an actual pandemic, it's an interesting study to see how society is adapting and moving and stressing itself during what you believe is a fake pandemic. Why are you fighting the fake pandemic? Why are you refusing to shave your beard and refusing to wear a mask? That's not actually learning how to cope and have a great practice session about what an actual pandemic might look like. And the same is true for societal collapse, due to economic collapse, and or human-caused climate change. You do not have to accept it as true. You don't have to accept it as possible. But if you actually are prepping and you refuse to believe that the climate could ever be really bad and alter, for whatever reason, including an asteroid strike or a nuclear war, I would have to question your sanity. You're prepping for something other than survival. You're not prepping for survival, you're prepping to make yourself feel powerful. And that's a danger. Because if you feel powerful, you often will not act. It is fear that is a great motivator. Not as good as sex. Sex is an awesome motivator. And I don't want to lose sex in the apocalypse, so I'm going to make sure Kitty gets well fed. So that's all from me. I hope you enjoyed this couple of videos on Praxis. I didn't plan it in advance. I just kind of really enjoyed the video he did. I found it really interesting from a political point of view, how he was really dancing around human-caused climate change as a topic, though he wanted to talk about it. But then when he did talk about it, I suspect he kind of might have offended and triggered people. That's cool. Anyway, have a great day. If you feel like giving me a sub, please do. If you want to give me a thumbs up, please do. It really helps my tiny little ego. It does not mean you accept human-caused climate change is real. Honest, that doesn't mean that. And if you didn't like the video, do give me a thumbs down. But try and tell me why in the comments below why you didn't like it. Is it wrong to prep for stuff a lot of people are prepping for because you don't believe it can ever happen? Is that okay? Is that alright to do that? For example, I don't believe there'll ever be a civil war. I don't believe America will ever invade Canada. Other people do. And I watch their stuff and I listen to them. And I read sci-fi books based upon those types of scenario. And I think about the implications of those things happening to me. I don't think they'll ever happen. Not in my lifetime. But I could be wrong. Know that. You're a human being. You're inherently flawed. You could be wrong. Prep for the stuff that's likely that everybody says is probably happening, especially when you don't believe it. Toodles. This has been a 2021 Arctic Terrier production.